This is Dr. Joseph Glatzer. I was the rabbi of the Jewish community of Regensburg, Bavaria, Germany, and also the chief rabbi and the president of the Central Committee for the Liberated Jews from Concentration and Death Camps for the region of Niederbayern and Oberpfalz in the U.S. zone. The information I am supplying to you in this interview is based only upon my personal recollections. I regret I do not have any written records of places, dates, and events in reference to the questions posed to me. My dear wife, Lucy, who is also a survivor of the German atrocities, will read your questions and I will answer them.
Question number 1. Where and when did you first encounter Jewish survivors of the Holocaust? Who were these people? Concentration camp victims or individuals who hid during the war? What was your response to them?
I was liberated by the glorious American troops of the 4th Armored Division at the end of April 1945 in concentration camp Flossenburg, Bavaria, Germany. There I met the first Jewish survivors who were inmates of that camp. There was a group of about 15 or 20 people. One can easily imagine their physical and emotional state. We got together for a Friday night service in one of the barracks of the camp. This naturally was a highly emotional experience for all of us. In my sermon, I tried by all means to do the same thing what our prophet Yechezkel Hanavi did thousands of years in Babylonian. I was trying to put into the dry bones a new life and a new spirit, and since then I became their spiritual leader.
With what army unit were you involved during the period in which you helped the survivors of the Holocaust?
Answer. I was involved with the 4th Armored Division of the American Army. The mentioned group of Jewish survivors was transferred among other nationalities into a camp for the peace. There we felt very uncomfortable and we were anxious to resume a normal life as Jews and as free individuals. So we decided to flee to Regensburg, which was the capital of Niederbayern and Oberpfalz. At that time, many survivors of this area were streaming into Regensburg. There, with the help of God, I was able to organize a relatively sizable Jewish community. I became their rabbi and also the president of the Jewish community of Regensburg.
Were you involved in getting packages from the United States and distributing them to the survivors? How were you able to provide food and other necessities to these survivors?
The answer. The UNRWA provided us with medical help, some food, and clothing.
What was the response of the Jewish and Gentile GIs when you needed their assistance in helping the survivors? To what extent was your Jewish personnel involved in helping the survivors prior to and during your own involvement?
Answer. The Jewish and Gentile GIs were most cordial and very anxious to assist us in every way. The members of the Council of the Jewish Community were actively engaged in helping the survivors with obtaining food, shelter, and clothing. They were working together with the UNRWA, with the army, and with the local German authorities.
What was the American Army's reaction to your activities on behalf of European Jewry on all levels?
This is the answer number 7. The reaction of the U.S. Army to all my activities, as to the activities of the Jewish community of Regensburg, which I represented, was most favorable on all levels, and I'm very, very happy to announce it. Hey.
Yeah.
Did you have any contact with JDC, and if so, how would you describe your association with them? How did you view your role? With whom did you work? How would you evaluate their efforts?
Answer to question number 8. I had a close contact with the representatives of the JDC with their central office in Munich. There was also a JDC office in Regensburg for the entire region of Niederbayern and the Oberpfalz. I delegated to one of my officials of the Council of the Jewish Committee, who was the liaison between us and the JDC. The JDC was most helpful in providing us with food, clothing, medicine, and also with liturgical objects like sidurim, chomushim, talisim, and tefillin. The director of the central office of the JDC in Munich at that time was Dr. Joseph Schwartz, alav hashalom, and his successor was Mr. Haber.
Did you work with the Jewish Agency during your stay in Europe?
Answer number 9. I did not work with the Jewish Agency during my stay in Germany.
Did you work with UNRWA? Please tell me about your specific experiences and general impression of their work.
Answer. I did work with the UNRWA, and their assistance was very valuable to us.
Were you involved in Aliyah Bet? If yes, please be specific. How would you characterize your role in this work?
Answer to this question is this. I was directly involved in all kinds of religious, social, and political Jewish activities which were going on in the entire region of Niederbayern and Oberpfalz. However, in reference to the Aliyah Bet, my involvement was an indirect one. I delegated a council member of my committee who was in charge of extending help to those who were leaving for Eretz Yisrael, at that time called Palestine. They were well provided with food, clothes, and a certain amount of money.
With what other Jewish organizations were you involved during this period? Describe this involvement.
Answer to question number 13. I also was involved with the American religious organization, the B'vat Hatzalah, who provided us occasionally with kosher food packages, sidurim, chomushim, talisim, and with other religious objects. The B'vat Hatzalah was also instrumental, together with the religious department of the JDC in Munich, which was at that time under the leadership of Rabbi Rosenberg Olaf Shulam in maintaining our synagogue in Regensburg and also in the restoration and upkeep of the mikveh therein.
Were you ever called upon to smooth relations between DPs and the U.S. Army? Please be specific about places, dates, and people involved.
Answer to question number 14. There was never any need for smoothing relations between the Jewish DPs and the U.S. Army. On the contrary, there was a very warm relationship, and there was a feeling of eternal gratefulness for the liberating us from the German savage beasts. We were looking and we were seeing in each one of the heroic American GIs the Hamalach Hagoel Oti Mikol Ra. We were seeing in each one of them the angel who was redeeming us from our long, long years of suffering and from a cruel death.
Were you involved in work within the concentration camps?
Answer to question number 15. I was an inmate of 2 concentration camps, of Buchenwald, and later I was in concentration camp of Flossenburg in Bavaria. According to my knowledge, no activities whatsoever of any kind were possible there.
Did you ever collect guns, ammunition, or money to be sent to Palestine?
Answer to question number 16. I personally was not involved in any of these activities.
Were you involved in working with other Jewish chaplains on the Jewish refugee problem? If so, with whom, when, and about what?
This is an answer to question number 17. I was closely involved in cooperation with Captain Chaplain Eugene Lippman of the 4th Armored Division from the time of the liberation which took place about the end of the month of April in 1945 till about the end of 1947. Captain Lippman was the outstanding spokesman on behalf of the Jewish survivors to the U.S. military government. His activities on behalf of our people were most valuable. Captain Lippman introduced me to the authorities of the U.S. military government. I was recommended to get all kind of help needed for establishing the Jewish community in Regensburg. The U.S. authorities were ordering the German municipal authorities to provide us with suitable furnished apartments equipped with all necessary facilities. Captain Lippman, as a very warm and outgoing person, took personal interest in each and every one of us, the She'erit HaPlita. He endeared us forever by his most cordial and brother-like relationship to us, the survivors of the death camps. I also met 2 other Jewish chaplains, namely Major Rabbi Emanuel Rachman and Rabbi Philip Bernstein. Rabbi Bernstein was a special advisor for the Jewish affairs attached to the European headquarters of the U.S. Army in Frankfurt am Main. Rabbi Rachman and Rabbi Bernstein visited me in my office in Regensburg and showed vital interest in us. Thanks to their initiative, a meeting with their participation was arranged with the American military town major. We held a constructive discussion on the essential problems of our Jewish community.
The role of American. How would you characterize the role of the American Jewish chaplain during this period, 1944 to 1948? How would you characterize your role during the period you worked with the survivors of the Holocaust?
To answer question number 18, I would like to say this. I am not able to reply in specifics on the role of the American Jewish chaplains during the period 1944 to 1948. However, generally speaking, I would like to say the following. The American Jewish chaplains were shlichei mitzvah of American Jewry to bring help and to give encouragement to the survivors of the Holocaust. They were successful in accomplishing that mission. I did not have any close contact with them except with Chaplain Lipman, on whose activities I already elaborated. To reply to the second part of your question number 18, I have to take you back to the darkest period of Jewish martyrdom and share with you one of the most sorrowful episodes from the saga of my miraculous survival as a Gentile with a forged Polish identification. I happened to live in Warsaw as a Gentile in the years from 1942 until September 1944. And so it was an act of the hashgacha, of the divine providence, for me to witness the last most tragic chapter in the history of the once flourishing Jewish community in Warsaw. I will remember forever the day of April 18th, 1943. On my way to work, while walking on Grodziecka Street, I saw German columns of tanks rumbling towards the ghetto. They were soon to squelch the last sparks of the super heroic ghetto uprising. Belief nishbar v'nitke. With a heart full of anguish and tears in my eyes, I then pledged, as our patriarch Yankov Avinu alav shalom, saying, V'haya Hashem imadi, baderech ansher anochi holech ba, if the Almighty will guard and guide me on this road on which I am walking right now, and He will spare me from this inferno, and I will remain alive, then I'll devote myself totally to those of our brothers and sisters who will survive the cruel slaughter. Thank God I was privileged to be able to fulfill my pledge. God Almighty is my witness that from the very day of my liberation, which took place on April 24th, 1945, up to the very day of my departure for the United States in the year 1949, I worked tirelessly for the well-being of the Atzamot Hayveshot, of the shattered remnants of the Holocaust. The enclosed documents will shed light only on some of my activities for the Shearit Haplita, for the Jewish survivors from the German concentration and death camps liberated by the heroic American troops.
What do you think might have happened there if you had not been there at that time? What do you think might have happened if the American Jewish chaplains had not been in Europe to help the survivors of the Holocaust?
I regret. It is beyond my capacity to give you an answer to that question.